Hi, I'm Fatima, and today I will be reading a part from the book The Only Road by Alexandra Diaz. Chapter 17. It took the whole day to walk to Huehuetoca. They left Lecheria behind and followed the train tracks, littered with plastic bags and scraps of clothes through burrows and empty grasslands. Then villages and a couple farms. What started out as a nice warm day turned to light rain in the afternoon. Still, they kept walking. Tired, Jaime dragged his feet, not paying attention to where he was going except that it was north. Always north. A few times a plastic bottle lined the tracks and he or Joaquin would kick it out of the way for something to break up the endless walking. A single tennis shoe lay on its side near the steel rail. Jaime swung his leg and gave the shoe a forceful punt. The shoe was a lot heavier than he expected, and not just because he was waterlogged. It only traveled over the rail before rolling down the slope. When it stopped, it exposed a brown and red mass with a pale rod protruding from inside the shoe. Jaime's stomach wrenched, and Javi's arm flew out to stop the others from getting closer. Too late. Everyone saw the mangled foot inside the shoe. Vida crept forward to give it a sniff before Javi uttered a reprimanding hiss, and she returned to his side. Not far from where the shoe had landed, two police officers with their backs towards them huddled around something in the tall grass near the tracks. Javi motioned them off the tracks, skirting through the undergrowth and mud to avoid attention. The officers' voices carried. Dead. El tren se lo comió. Jaime's stomach lurched some more. They were talking as if the train were alive, gobbling people up. Do you want me to look for the rest of the pieces? And spitting them back out. No need. Stray dogs or birds will take care of him. But take a picture of the head to put up at the station, in case anyone comes looking for him. They never do, though. Angela seized Jaime in Joaquin's arms and hauled them away before any of them caught sight of something else they didn't want to see. Javi paused to make the sign of the cross before catching up with them. Jaime forced himself to take deep breaths. Ever since the news of Miguel, Jaime had thought that death was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Whether he was being beaten to death by people who had once been friends, or suffocating in a soulless train. Jaime hated remembering how Miguel had looked in his coffin, his face distorted and grotesque. At least Jaime had been there, had known of his cousin's fate. But this unidentified person, chopped to bits by the train, that was worse. He died by himself in a strange country, and his family would never know. As the day progressed, others joined them. A young couple, then a man whose face looked like he had been burned. A sign in a rundown building said they were in a small town of Huehuetoca. But rumor had it that the ideal place to get on the train was a few kilometers farther north. Right here, the tracks form a straight line, and the train just zips by, said the man with the burned face. Once clear of the town, the tracks curve, and that's where it slows down. Too tired to care, Jaime dragged his feet behind the others and let them figure things out. At least it had stopped raining. The waiting spot was obvious. There were a few others scattered around the tall grasses and shrubs where the tracks bent. 10, maybe 12 people in total. Jaime nodded and greeted each traveler politely, but didn't feel like making conversation. Not when he knew how easy it was for any of them to die. Not after having said goodbye to Rafa. Soon he would have to do the same with Joaquin. And maybe Javi. The older boy still hadn't mentioned where he was going. They slept in some bushes near the tracks and woke up early. The legless man had said the train heading to Mexicali would go through in the morning, but hadn't said when. Not that anyone had a wristwatch. They had left the populated city behind during their long trek the day before, and were now in grasslands with scattered trees and occasional buildings. This part is important because it tells the unfiltered, harsh reality that many South American children encounter through their journey to the US. And I feel like people need to know that. Why do you think the author decided to include this in his writing?